Welcome to Seymour's World at Think Tech Hawaii. This is our 5th presentation, and I think probably the most important presentation we are making. Today we are going to talk to Bernard Offen. He is 85 years young, a Holocaust survivor who was in Auschwitz at the age of 12 years old. I cannot tell you how much I admire this man for not just having lived through the Holocaust, but also continues to do tours at Auschwitz, talks to groups all over the world about Auschwitz and what happened. And of course, what we all must remember, we cannot forget the lessons we learned at Auschwitz and what happened during the Holocaust. So this topic is one that's very close to my heart. Bernard and I decided 5-6 years ago to develop a video presentation called Hawaii and the Holocaust, which you can see here. And this is given to every school here in the state of Hawaii. Public, high schools, colleges, universities. We use Hawaii and the Holocaust so that children understand what happened during that time. At this moment, the Holocaust is just a paragraph in a book for most of the history students here in Hawaii. We can't let it be just a paragraph in a book. We have to make it a topic that they understand. They will have a chance to make sure that it never happens again. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Bernard, an old friend. We've known each other for almost 10 years now. And Bernard, this story is so important. I just want you to start at the beginning. What was it like? What happened that you ended up in Auschwitz?
Well, actually, Auschwitz was almost the last camp I was in. Before Auschwitz, of course, there was the ghetto, the KRAKOW ghetto. And then there was the Ploshov camp, which is nearby Krakow, which is also the Schindler List story. And after the Krakow ghetto was closed down, we were transferred to the Ploshov camp. From there, after a very short time, I escaped and ended up being free for just a few days, and some Polish people helped me to survive. And I like to mention the names because they helped me. They risked their life. It was Władysław Cieślik was his name. And however, they could not keep me for long because if they were discovered, they would be shot too. So I returned to the area from which I escaped, the Ploshov camp, and I made contact with an uncle of mine whom I knew was in a camp near the Ploshov camp, and he advised me that he couldn't help me because he didn't have any means. But in the end, I got smuggled into a camp not from which I escaped, but a nearby camp where my uncle was, and remained there till the camp was closed down, and then I was transferred back to the camp from which I escaped, and I was reunited with my father. So that was the first camp besides the ghetto. And the second camp was when that camp, the Ploshov camp, was closed down. We were sent in a 3-day journey to Austria, or in Mauthausen in Austria. And my father and my brothers, who disappeared for me for quite a long time, and I didn't know if they were alive or not. And we were sort of reunited on that transport to the Mauthausen camp in Austria. And they were thrown into the same transport. We reunited in that Mauthausen camp for a short time, and soon thereafter, within a week, less than a week, my father and I were sent to Auschwitz.
How old were you at the time?
I was actually going on 13.
And your brothers? How old were they?
My brothers are 8 years older, my oldest brother, and my middle brother is 5 years older than I. He is 91 now. And they remained in that camp, and they were transferred to a camp called Gusen, which was a stone quarry. And they both survived together. My father and I were sent to Auschwitz. And so that, when on our arrival in Auschwitz, it was a journey of almost 3 days, 2 nights. And my father saved my life by leaning against the side of the car, and I was down between his legs and the side of the car. But when we arrived in Auschwitz, he was sent one way, to the left from my perspective, and I was sent to the right. And that was the last time I saw my father, and we kind of had an eye contact, if you can have an eye contact from about 50 yards, but I felt I had eye contact, and at that moment we didn't know which side was the better side for him or for me, but we knew it was not good, and my father ended up in a gas chamber in Auschwitz, and I went to have a shower and tattooing, and ended up in the barracks in the quarantine camp part of Auschwitz. Towards the, as the war was coming to an end, the Russians were invading Poland, so Auschwitz was being emptied out, and I was on a transport, on a truck transport with other prisoners. We were sent to Dachau. Actually, it was not Dachau, the main camp, but it was a sub-camp of Dachau. And from there, I went to work as a slave laborer in a construction site, and I survived in many different ways, being helped by older adults who sometimes gave me an extra piece of clothing, or told me which way to go, so I wouldn't be as exposed to beatings as they were. I call them my good Samaritans, and I call them my angels, because in many ways they saved my life. I don't remember their names, but I do remember faces. And I was at this construction site, and I was working on a miniature train shuttling back and forth construction materials. And from there, we were forced march because the Americans were already invading Germany, and other allies were, and we were put on a death march, and that was near Munich, not far from the Dachau area, and we were liberated by the American forces, and they were. I call them my angels too, because I'm forever grateful to America that You know, they saved my life.
I know that our viewers have seen lots of photos and pictures of Auschwitz and Dachau, and the experiences have been on several videos and several movies. But to hear a personal story that you have, and to sit here next to you, it just gives me chicken skin, because I can't imagine what it was like living as a 13-year-old boy in a place like Auschwitz, especially after we went there with you and toured Auschwitz with you, and you showed us where your father went to the gas chamber and where your bunk was and how many people were in there. Can you give us, I mean, we don't have, a lot of time, but can you give us just a picture of a moment of what it was like living there?
Let me tell you a moment where there's four starving men who were given a loaf of bread to, and we each had to cut it and see that it was an equal portion that we had. So there would be a fight if we could not get an equal share of the bread. So someone in the barrack had a scale. A scale consisted of a short string and a piece of wood and two short pieces of string, and at the end of the string was a toothpick, very thick toothpick, that was plunged into the bread. So it was cut in 4 quarters, and it was and if you can imagine 4 starving men watching which side has got the more, and if it was not even, it was cut and put on the other side. Okay, so you can see a moment like that. And for the use and of the scale, we each had to give a little piece of bread to the person that owned the scale. Okay, that's one incident. The other incident is that the barrack leader, who was in charge of the whole barrack, said that tomorrow there's going to be an inspection, and when it's your turn to go up in front of the SS men, you go and don't just drag yourself up there. You run up there and don't look at the SS men's eyes. Look at his boots. So the next day, it was the inspection, and I had to take the hat off and run up there, and I did exactly what he told me. I looked at his shining big boots, and later I found out that was Mengele, Dr. Mengele. And of course, some people say, "Oh, so you saw Mengele?" No, never saw him. I only saw his boots.
But what a story that was, to know that you were in front of a man like that.
Mass murderer.
By far.
Torturer.
I know. We're going to take a short break. This is Seymour's World at Think Tech Hawaii. We're with Bernard Offen, a Holocaust survivor who was 13 years old when he went into Auschwitz. We'll be back in a minute.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the Think Tech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi, we're back at Seymour's World on Think Tech Hawaii with Bernard Offen, who is telling us an amazing, incredible, true story of what happened to him when he was a young man in Auschwitz. as well as the rest of the war. I want you all to know that on this Sunday, is that correct? This Sunday, Channel 12, that's OC16, is going to have it's going to have a movie actually that Bernard participated in, and my mother, who is also a Holocaust survivor, participated in. So if you want to watch it, it's going to be at 10:30 p.m. on OC16, Channel 12, and it's going to be repeated several times thereafter. So if you go to the Think Tech Hawaii website, you'll be able to find all the times that you can see it. I strongly suggest you watch it. It's an amazing story of two Holocaust survivors. So Bernard, we in just a few minutes we talked about a horrible period of time. Because we don't have much time, I want to know what happened to your brothers. What happened after the war? How did you survived it, and what happened to you once you were able to get past 1945?
After liberation by the American forces, about 2 months after, I started looking for family. I didn't know who I would find, but I found the names of both my brothers in a book of survivors. But my name did not appear there because I was with American forces and they were in a refugee camp. So I started chasing after them. I found out in Munich that, where they went to, so I started for that camp. There was no transport at that time going, only coal and other war goods to restart the economy because everything was bombed out. So I hopped on a coal train, and it was heading for Austria, for Salzburg, because that was my information that they went into a refugee camp there. I did that, and when I got to the camp, they said, "Oh yes, your brothers, they were here, but they're not here any longer. They were sent to Italy." So I had to get some documents because no documents existed about me at all. And I traveled to Italy with refugees who were slave laborers also, and went to the camp where information was they went to. So I get to the camp, and they said, "Oh yes, your brothers, they were here, but they're no longer here." So I said, "And where did they go?" "Well, they joined the Polish army." So I go to this Polish army hospital, and they said, "Oh yes, your brothers, they're much better shape now, but they're not here anymore, any longer." Where did they go? "Well, they were sent to this soldiers' training camp." So I go to the army camp, and I said, "Are my brothers there?" He says, "Oh yes, they're here. However, they're not here because they're on leave." And where did they go? Well, they went to this city called Bari, and they're on leave. So I get to that camp. It's a long story, and chasing after them. But there was such a need for me to find family so I get to the camp, and I asked them, "Did they see him?" "Oh yeah, we saw your brothers walking out there someplace." And so I go walking, and I see a soldier come by, and I ask, "Did you see my brothers?" He said, "Oh yeah, there's someplace there." Finally, I see two young men dressed in British Army uniforms with Polish insignias, and they kind of look familiar, so I go towards them. And it's still stuck in my being the moment when I found them, because I was the bearer of the news that father was murdered in Auschwitz. And so that was our reunion. But since that time, of course, we immigrated to, first of all, I, as independent of the Polish army soldiers, was sent to England just like my brothers, and we spent 5 years there. And then we immigrated to the United States, to Detroit, where I had cousins, I have cousins, and that was our reunion.
It's absolutely amazing just to be able to find your brothers like that, because I know my parents tried to do the same thing, and obviously they couldn't find anybody because all of their family was killed during the war. When you came back, you went into the American Army, didn't you?
When I immigrated here
To the US, yeah.
within the year, yes, I was drafted in the Army, and I served in Korea. I'm a Korean veteran.
That's unbelievable.
Yes, so from one war to another war, it is my experience, you know. But I was glad to do that, because I was with my heroes and doing exactly what my heroes were doing, who liberated me.
That's fantastic. We all feel, and I'm speaking for our audience, we all feel something in our hearts for you. It's absolutely amazing. I want to reach a little further down, if I may. How do you heal from something like that, Bernard? How do you make that transition from the pain that you have for losing your father and seeing all those people killed in the war to, I'm looking at you now and I'm saying this man, 85, looks 20 years younger. How have you healed, or what, are you still in the process of healing?
It's a never-ending process, actually, and that is my work of healing is by confronting my own past and going back into the places where I suffered. And that is, I take people through the KRAKOW ghetto and Auschwitz, only the places I survived. And I tell them the stories. And that's a lightening up of me and information for the people who, what transpired there. After all, you know, we as survivors are disappearing. And so who will be there to tell what really transpired? So I do that, and I have been doing that for almost 30 years. I go back to Poland for 6 months or longer, and I lead groups. And in that process, I tell them, I call the process self-confrontation in the process of healing. In other words, they need to confront, if they want to heal, confront their own past, that which is mostly unconscious for us, and make it conscious and work with it. So in that way, we can heal. And that's been a great part of my healing myself. One of the things I do with people is I say, I tell them these stories, and I say, ask questions, please, if you have questions. And many times someone will ask a question, and I start to sometimes stop and cry, because it brought up something that was buried deeply within me. But that question brought it up, and I say exactly what I was crying about to the people who are with me, and inform them. That's a very healing moment to take that out of myself and put it out to the people. So it's lightening up of myself. It's my healing process. It takes a lot of energy to do that, but it's healing.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to talk about some of Bernard's books and the videos that you've produced, some of the lectures that he's given around the world, and maybe get a deeper insight into how somebody who has suffered so much can have such a positive attitude. I admire him. It's an immense pleasure for me just to be able to sit next to this man. We'll be back. This is Seymour's World at Think Tech Hawaii.
We want to thank our underwriters. Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve. Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company. the High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook, Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the gas company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Hori. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Welcome back to Seymour's World at Think Tech Hawaii. We are with Bernard Offen, a Holocaust survivor, who's telling us about his experiences in the Second World War, what happened during the Holocaust to his family and others. So, Bernard, a question that I'm sure has been raised many times. You speak to a lot of people, and a lot of them have not been in the situation that you have been. How do you feel? Do you feel that they are that they want to learn from you, or do you feel there's just no way that you could give them the accurate picture of what happened during the Holocaust?
I think that most people want to know what transpired, but talking about the raw things that happened there is very difficult to grasp, and in most people, it's hard to really realize that humans being did that to other human beings, and that the Holocaust has not been accepted what really transpired there, and we are going on to business as usual as if it didn't happen. But with that kind of an unconscious, it leads us to a very terrible place in the end if we don't realize what happened in history, and which is true.
I find that when I talk to children and high school students and college students, they are, especially here in Hawaii, I find that most of them are very willing to learn, and they want to understand what really happened. And when I tell them the personal story, just like you talk about your personal story, and I tell the story of a young girl, Ann Kazimirski, who was 17 at the time, and tell them what happened to her and how she saw her mother shot in front of them, you could hear a pin drop. And I know that with you, even though we experienced it when Sue and I went to Auschwitz, and even when Aaron, my son, and I went to Auschwitz, and we were with you, I could feel in the air such tension. It really bothered me. And I try to convey that when I speak to the students and when I talk to other people about it. And I'm not sure if they do grasp it, because we have such a personal feeling about what happened. And I just want to know, are you able to convey it? Do you find them, you said before, they go back to business as usual. That's not the idea. The idea of the lessons of the Holocaust, for me anyway, is the lessons of intolerance. To be able to teach our young people that intolerance, bullying, what you see today on the internet, all that kind of stuff, you can't stand idle and just watch it happen. You have to take an active participatory role to make sure that you try to stop it if you can. Do you agree? Is that?
Absolutely. If we don't have feelings for other people and concerns about other people, then we will find ourselves in a very lonely place and disconnected with people. And that's who some of the Nazis were. Very intellectual. The head and the heart were not connected, and that was the big problem. And we need to connect the head and the heart.
But how do you not as Bernard Offen, but as a very intelligent man, how did they believe that the right thing to do was to just shoot hundreds and thousands of people and to do the things that we see on videos and movies? What was Hitler able, or if it was Hitler or others, what were they able to do to convince people that it's okay to do that?
Well, a lot of these Nazis were brought up in an era of hatred of Jews, especially anti-Semitism. You take away the Semitism, and what you have is anti-human. You know, skip the Semitism, and you have anti-human thoughts, feelings, and ideas. And Hitler was a god for some of these people. That's who he was. And they got all kinds of rewards for doing mass murder and all of that.
Amazing, amazing. When we look at that period in time and we analyze it that way and we say they were just following orders, which is a very common phrase that we hear, or they were mesmerized by his charisma and his ability to get everybody on his side of the page and to believe in what he said. Would you do the same?
You know, I had to put myself in someone else's shoes to see if I would possibly, if I were born in Germany and went through that kind of an upbringing and believed that Jews were bad people, I might have turned out also to be a Nazi believer in Hitler. It's what we believe. You know, there's in use of computers, there's an acronym for users and programmers, GIGO. GIGO stands for garbage goes in, garbage comes out. What we believe is what we get. We truly what we believe is what we get. If we're happy and we think positive thoughts, as you have done in these organizations, you know, we have a healthier life, healthier outlook, include other people, and you know, we don't close off the world, we open it up.
It's interesting because your life partner Christina and you and Sue and I have had many conversations about grieving. And last week we went to visit Cynthia at Kids Hurt Too, and she will be on our show in a couple of weeks. And her specialty is in grievance and how children grieve after the loss of a parent, or being kicked out of the house, or drugs, or parents going to prison. And I saw that you and Christina had a direct affiliation with that. You understood very clearly that when you grieve, you don't just grieve for a moment. It stays with you for a long time.
It's, yes. And unless we work with that, instead of denying it and consequently it's buried within us, you know. So also the question was, do I feel different than other people who did not suffer what I suffered? I'm not different. However, I had an experience which very few people have experienced. And that leads me to being more sensitive about the world, you know, and unfortunately that many people who have suffered go into areas of helping other people because they have experienced something. But people who are only in their head, not connected with the heart, go into areas which are very mechanical and, you know, not really connecting with people. And in that way I feel different because I've had that experience, which is very difficult to talk about, and certainly don't wish anything like that to happen to anyone in the world ever, ever.
After 70 years, Bernard, you're still very active, though. You're extremely active in talking about the Holocaust, and you're still doing the tours of Auschwitz. And I think, how many videos do you have out now and books that you've done?
I have one book, and I have 4 videos out, and there's 2 that are going to be released soon when I get back to Poland.
If any of you are interested in his videos and or his book, please contact me at seymour.kazimirski@gmail.com, and I'll make sure that you can get some access to Bernard. I can release your email address, and he is extremely open to talking to anybody who is interested in understanding what it was like during that time period. We're going to be back in a minute. This is Seymour's World at Think Tech Hawaii.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Hori for Think Tech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Hori. Mahalo.
Hi, we're back at Seymour's World at Think Tech Hawaii. We're with Bernard Offen, a Holocaust survivor. His story you will be able to see on OC16. That is this weekend on Sunday night at 10:30 p.m., Channel 12. There's Jay Fidel from Think Tech Hawaii produced a wonderful video that will incorporate Bernard's story and my mother's story and one of my talks to a school here in Hawaii. Bernard, let's talk about the wonderful things that happened since the war. You've obviously had a great, wonderful life after. You have made everything positive in your life. Tell us a little bit about post-war for you.
Well, I have 2 sons, and they are in Detroit, and I have a pretty good relationship with them. A little distant, but relationship is good. And I was in business in Detroit for quite a long time. I gave that up, and I started to travel because of the newspaper articles which I read in the Detroit News, and that was the period of when there was a scare about building shelters for the atomic bomb, just in case one explodes, you know. So the circles that were shown in the newspaper, what would happen within one circle when for human beings, and the other circle and the third circle. And when I realized that there is no safe place from the atomic bombs, I decided to sell my business and start traveling and teach about the Holocaust and enjoy life. I also started to learn about production of videos and film. And I went to school, and I traveled a great deal all over the world, and I started confronting my own past, which is going back to Poland and the places I went through, as all of a healing process.
Was it difficult to move back to Poland, to go back to Krakow?
Well, it was. The first one was a very difficult time because I was already booked with a group to go back to Poland in 1951 when the Solidarity movement happened, and there was disruption there because of strikes and all that. And the group canceled because they said there's problems going on there. And I said, well, I am going because I'm ready to go. And I went and went back to Auschwitz and KRAKOW, and it was my self-confrontation to go into the places where all that fear I absorbed, but it was a different time, and I started looking at it in a different way. So that was the self-confrontation. And from then on, it was a process of healing, and continues to be a process of healing. And also, I have a thing about forgiveness. People have asked me, how do I forgive the Germans for doing that? And I said, well, I can only forgive for my own suffering. I cannot forgive for my parents or anyone else. It's not within my power to do so. But as I started to forgive for what happened to me, my healing process began to improve, because it's a letting go of an anger that I'm holding against somebody, whether it is Nazis or whether it's my parents or whether it's my neighbor or whoever. The process of forgiveness is necessary. It's a letting go, and that helped me to heal much better than if I would have not done that. Some people, you cannot forgive for every. Of course I can't. Otherwise I'd be God. You know, I can forgive only for myself, and that's helped me a great deal. And that's what I keep on doing, is to, and it's not a one-time process event where forgive, done. No. It comes up again and again because something happens. I hear maybe a German language or something, and reactivates me again. And oh, I thought I forgave. No, it's a continuous process, healing process.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When I announced that Bernard was going to be a guest, I had a lot of emails, and they wanted, most of them were all about, oh, can you give us a little bit of history on Bernard? And I sent out a lot of memos about it. But I did get a couple of emails that said, why are you bringing this up again? It's always something that, you know, you talk about, and we know that your mother was a Holocaust survivor, and my mother and father, and why are you always bringing it up again? Bernard, I'm going to let you answer that question.
Well, listen, it's something that I believe people need to hear, and what conclusions they will have from it is their own. But at least you'll be warned about the possibilities of what we as human beings are capable of. And if you're not aware of that, we're living an unconscious life. And that's why I keep on doing it. It's for the healing process, and to warn people of, you know, where are we drifting to? What kind of humanity are we empowering? What, you know, and what do we do with that?
What is your feeling about what's going on today in the world? I mean, we've had a lot of demigods and a lot of dictatorships and a lot of terrible news. I mean, the latest, of course, in Syria. What is your feeling? Are the lessons learned from the Holocaust?
No, not really. There's some people have learned a lesson, and they are doing something about it at their own level, as we all can only do it at our own level. But to some people, power is the most important thing, and making money is the most important things, and lives do not count. We don't count as human beings. The banks in Germany in the time of the war and in Hitler's time, they made an enormous amount of money from the Holocaust itself. So if we make money of just anything, and we don't count, this is what is beginning to happen all over the world, not only here in the United States. You know, it's about making money. And after that, it's about making money. And after that, it's about making money again.
So how do we bring that humanity part back into our lives?
Look, with our democracy, which is in shambles now, we need to reinvigorate it. We need to be active, not passive in our voting. We need to be active in our community. We need to be active about our education, what we learn, you know, who we listen to, who is our authority. If we don't do that, we're going to go down the tubes like all the other great nations. The empires went down, and that's sorry to hear that, but the way we're going, that's what's going to happen eventually.
Well, this is a lesson to be learned from a man who probably has more experience than all of us put together in life, having endured the Holocaust. I want to thank you very, very much, Bernard, for being our guest today. I wish I had
You're
more
welcome.
time, because I know you and I have spoken for hours at length, and just hearing the story in as little time as we had today, I'm sure our viewers will be sending me lots and lots of emails about it. I do want to tell you and remind you again that we are going to have a TV show on Lelo, on Channel 12 OC16 at 10:30 p.m. on Saturday night. And if you want to find more times, because it's going to be rebroadcast, go to the Think Tech Hawaii website and you'll find other times for it to be broadcast. It's going to be called Looking Back to the Holocaust and Hawaii. It'll be a story about Bernard, about my mother, and a talk that I gave to a Catholic school here a couple of weeks ago. I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for all the emails and comments that I've been receiving. And I always say this, those of you who have sent me good comments about the show, keep them coming. Those of you who don't like what I'm doing, I don't read those anyway. Be well, everybody. This is Seymour's World at Think Tech Hawaii.